Welcome back to the Adam Schefter Podcast as we get ready to head into the Memorial Day holiday weekend. Big time for everybody to recharge their batteries in the NFL world, coming off yet another week of huge headlines, big stories across the league with massive ramifications that we will dive into today with the co-host of the Pat McAfee Show, Ty Schmit, and the man who always leads us in the weekly six-pack.
Thank you very much, Shefty. Good to be back with you as always. I'll tell you what, anytime, you think we're going to get like a little bit of a breather and there's not going to be much to talk about, it's just we get hammered with more new news, a bunch of stuff coming out. But again, we always say it, that's why the NFL is the behemoth that it is, and I don't think we'd have it any other way. With that in mind, let's get right into the six-pack. Biggest kind of news of the week here. The owners' meetings, the league meetings in Minnesota, and everyone's talking about the Tush Push. Obviously, today it did not pass, but from what you know, Shefty, kind of just walk me through that whole situation and it ultimately not being passed.
Well, first of all, Tal, let's give it some basic information. 22-10 vote against the Tush Push. The league needed 24 votes to ban the Tush Push. It got 22. So the league was 2 votes short of getting the Tush Push banned for the upcoming season. Now, here are the teams that sided with the Philadelphia Eagles and voted against the ban. And ordinarily, I don't like to get into the teams who voted where, but for some reason, I think there's tremendous interest in who voted where, whether they sided with the Eagles or whether they were against the Eagles. So aside from the Eagles voting against the ban, the other 9 teams that sided with Philadelphia were the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, and the Tennessee Titans. Interesting in that there were 2 teams in the AFC East, but not the Buffalo Bills, that sided with the Eagles, and the Bills can run a version of that play. Now let's take you inside that room a little bit. Reached out to a couple of people to get why the Eagles were able to capture enough votes to prevent this play from being banned. And the way it was told to me was, from one Eagles official, that they think that what's happening on this play is misunderstood. And in that room with Jeffrey Lurie, with Jason Kelce, they were able to clarify how the play is coached and how it's taught. They made a compelling case on safety and taking away the downfield push that turned people off. From an offensive perspective, and this is how it was explained to me from my notes, it's not a linear player crashing headfirst into an opponent. The objective is to play with leverage, get below your opponent, and then rise up to create the wave that the ball carrier can ride. And that's what the Eagles do. And so the league, I think, the people that voted against this play, that wanted it banned, they believe they're taking a proactive stance towards health and safety. But there just weren't enough teams to get it done. And so the Tush Push lives another day. Jason Kelce was supposed to be at the Emmys in New York on Tuesday night, was scheduled to be there, was nominated for Outstanding Personality. And when I was in the audience there on Tuesday night, and I noticed Jason Kelce wasn't there when he was nominated, I said, he was in Minneapolis. The Eagles were hiding him out. They flew him in. They brought him in on Wednesday morning with the Eagles owner, Jeffrey Lurie. They had him talk about exactly what we're talking about here. Leverage at the line of scrimmage, crashing headfirst into your opponent and playing with leverage and rising up to create that wave. That is what Jason Kelce has mastered. That is what Cam Jurgens, the current Eagles center, has done. And they were able to convince enough teams, 9 others, to not vote for the ban of the Tush Push. And the Tush Push now lives the 2025 season.
So what does this mean moving forward, Shefty? Because I think going
Yeah.
into the league meetings, I think everyone assumed, or at least the kind of what I was hearing and what like I think the media was as a whole was kind of reporting was, hey, they're gonna have the votes. Anytime this happens where they table it and then kind of say, hey, we're gonna revisit this, it's because the league wants them to kind of get behind it, get more votes. Does this mean it's kind of just in it's dead in the water now, or will this be revisited again maybe next year or the year
Yeah.
after?
I think it's always possible to be brought up again next season. How about this? I would say this that look, we know it's going to be there in 2025. We'll see how the season plays out. We'll see whether there are any concerns, issues like a Frankie Luvo type play in the NFC Championship game where he's jumping over the line of scrimmage. The play is delayed. We find out that there's a rule that referees can award a touchdown to a team if they deem fit. Like, that was wild. Did you know any of that? I didn't know any of
No,
that. And I've covered
no.
the NFL for 35 years. So I think that right now, the tush push is safe right now. Does that mean it can't come up again next year? No. But for now, it lives for at least another season.
Okay. And I'm just glad there's a resolution because one way or another, to be honest, I was kind of getting sick of talking about it as much as we were. It's like I understand that it's like, a big part of what the Eagles do, but anyone can do it. Anyone could be successful at it. And it kind of just felt like, sour grapes for a lot of teams because they weren't as successful with it as the Eagles were. So that'll be something to keep an eye on, as we move forward, I guess. Let's move on to topic number two, Shefty. A lot of waves being made today. We got the official announcement of both the in-season Hard Knocks teams, which is going to be the NFC East this year, which I love. I think there's a lot of inherent drama in that. And then we're also going to be going to training camp with the Buffalo Bills. What do you think about all of the selections of the Hard Knocks teams?
Well, let me start this way. That I always feel like when we get a announcement of Hard Knocks that the season's getting close, that the summer is upon us, training camp is nearing, and now we're going to get a chance to dive in. And I love the idea of seeing what the Buffalo Bills are about and whether or not they can make this their season. When we talk about fan bases that deserve an NFL championship, we could talk about Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, New York with the Jets. There are a handful of cities that I think it would be unbelievable to see those fan bases be able to watch their teams win a Super Bowl. So now Buffalo is just about as good as any team in the league. We'll get an up close look at them this summer. It's 5 weeks. It starts August 5th on HBO Max. And, the Bills are a great story. We were there 2 weeks ago for that event for the creation of Bills Mafia with Stevie Johnson. Loved being there, loved being around those fans. And this is just going to be more exposure to some of these guys. I'll give you a prediction on some storylines already. James Cook contract holdout. That's going to be up there. Who emerges at wide receiver? I'm maybe DeMar Hamlin will be in there a little bit up close with DeMar Hamlin, right? Josh Allen's always going to be interesting. We'll probably hear a little bit more about him and his wedding to Haley Steinfeld, right? That'll be a part of this as well. And then in season, the NFC East. I mean, I'm sorry, but I cannot believe the New York Giants are participating in another segment of Hard Knocks. They didn't have enough the first time
neither.
Last offseason that they're back for more? Really? I guess it couldn't get any worse than it did last offseason. And they have all these hopes with Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter and the players that they drafted and signed. And they really believe that they're going to be different. And that's great. Boy, if you go through the experience that they went through on Hard Knocks and then come back to do it again, just over a year later, that's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. Now, what that tells me is that Jerry Jones really wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones pushed to make this happen because the Cowboys are always great theater and drama. And we'll get to watch Brian Schottenheimer in his first season as the Cowboys head coach and the Commanders as they try to catch the Eagles and the Giants with whatever's going on. Hey, if you could pick a division to have an in-season Hard Knocks, that might be the one that you'd want to see. That might be the one, considering that we got the AFC North. And you know what? Again, the Emmys will come up. I was at the Emmys on Tuesday night, and the in-season show for Hard Knocks for the Ravens, or excuse me, the AFC North, won for the category that they were in. So NFL Films, HBO, they do a great job with this. That's not the question. And it's going to be great again. But I'm just surprised that the Giants willingly signed up to be the participant again. Back for more.
Yeah, I agree. Me personally, I mean, I'll still watch it, but I feel like the preseason training camp Hard Knocks has kind of jumped the shark a little bit, because if you want to find out about what's going on with your favorite team, there's probably a YouTube series that like the team has on their own channel. So like you can find that stuff. Whereas when it first started, like you couldn't. You had to watch Hard Knocks to see, those early seasons with Rex Ryan and the Jets and the Ravens and, all that kind of stuff. I love the in-season one. I personally,
really?
Yeah, I do. I think it's
I don't
great.
watch the in-season as much as I watch the summer one. I feel like the summer one just preps you for the season. I'm also getting ready for fantasy. I want to see who's making an impact.
Yeah,
right?
and I think it is tough because we don't have games on Sundays when you have the training camp one. Yeah. So that's kind of like your fill of football for the week when you're in the season, and I think they put it on Tuesdays now because they include but I think one of the reasons they're doing the NFC East is because I remember we had Keith Cosgrove on from NFL Films, and he said, I can't remember. I think they kind of tweak when they start it, and he said the goal is that we're gonna start it, week 11, week 12, or whatever, and we'll kind of recap the season up to that point. But then we're gonna follow them until their season ends. Well, every team that they had done previously to that didn't make the playoffs, so it was kind of ended on a sour note, week 17. This year, you have two teams who are, in the NFC champion. So, like, there's a chance that we get a team who's going to go to the Super Bowl. And also, I think one of the coolest things about it last year, doing the divisions, we talked about this on the schedule release last week. There is a big cluster of divisional matchups late in the season, and it's really cool when they go inside the meeting rooms. Let's say it's Cowboys, Commanders. They'll go into the Cowboys, meeting room, and then there's the juxtaposition of that message with what the Commanders' message is, and they're playing each other that week. And I think just for the typical fan, like you don't ever get inside those meeting rooms. The only people who really know about those are players. So I love the in-season Hard Knocks. I'm very excited that we have three potential playoff teams. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Giants will surprise people, but I think that's a great choice.
I'm sure the Giants' level of excitement matches yours, Ty.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. All right, Shefty, let's move on to topic number 3. Speaking of the Eagles, what do you make of the Nick Sirianni extension?
Well, look, we said on the morning of the Super Bowl, on Sunday Countdown, that Nick Sirianni had millions of dollars at stake in that game. He was going to be going into the last year of his deal. And if you're coming off a Super Bowl win, you have the right to elevate your contract to make yourself one of the highest paid coaches in the league, which he now is. And they were always going to reward him. It took them till now to get this done. And I found it very interesting that when many of these extensions come out, teams announce the number of years on the extension or when that particular individual is under contract to that organization through. And the Eagles, all they said here was multi-year extension. Now, I think that's a little bit of a disservice. They don't want to say the years because they don't want to put it out there and have Eagles fans be like, okay, well, Nick Sirianni's got 3 years left on his deal, or 4 years, or 5, whatever they did. I don't know the length of the deal. They don't want a clock ticking towards the end of that, to which I say, what does it matter? In the NFL, a head coach is always on the clock, no matter who you are. If you don't win and you're going through issues, then you always run the risk that you could be fired at any point. I don't care whether Nick Sirianni is under contract to the Eagles through 28 or 29 or 30 or whatever it may be. The fact of the matter is he got his money. He got paid for what he's done. And it's incredible to me that there were people in the public world calling for his job when he challenged that fan. They weren't winning early in the year. It felt like he was on the ropes a little bit, and it could have gone either way, and it went the right way. And the players love him, and they respond to him, and he's won for them. And if you look at the numbers, Nick Sirianni owns the third best career winning percentage, third best among coaches who have won Super Bowls behind only John Madden and Vince Lombardi. He's won over 70% of his games, whereas Madden won 75.9% and Lombardi 73.8%. Overall, Nick Sirianni has produced the sixth highest career winning percentage in league history. Sixth highest. Think about that. That is incredible to me. Minimum of 50 games. He's the first NFL head coach to earn 4 playoff appearances, 2 conference titles, and a Super Bowl championship in the first 4 years of his head coaching career. Now, you could say, hey, this is a great roster. This is a great quarterback. These are great players. This is a great GM. This is a great owner. You could say any of those things, but he is the head coach, and head coaches always get more credit or blame than they deserve. And Nick Sirianni certainly has gotten more blame than he should have in the past, so he's certainly entitled to all the credit and the new contract that's coming his way.
Yeah, certainly well-deserved. I mean, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won one. Obviously, I don't think people talk about it enough, but it's very clear that he is a great leader of men. I mean, there's a lot of egos in every NFL locker room, but look how many people have been paid, for the Eagles. Like, they have a lot of top dogs. That receiver room, they got a lot of guys who want the ball, and rightfully so. And then he's also had to deal with, replacing coordinators almost every year, which is not easy to do. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about Philly, and he understands this is, yeah, he's got security now for a little bit, but, think back to the year after the Eagles won that Super Bowl, a couple years back before he was there. They opened up in the, on Thursday night or whatever, they're getting beat at halftime, and the crowd's booing them, So it's like he understands, like, it's what have you done for me lately there? You're only as good as what you've done recently. And whether that's fair or not, he understands that. And I think his attitude and his demeanor kind of perfectly matches with the city of Philadelphia.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. Yeah, he's going to go do what he does. And he's done that, and he's landed the contract extension that he deserves. Good for him.
Exactly. And he's got a team that is going to compete for a Super Bowl for the foreseeable future. So,
agree.
Hats off to Sirianni. Happy for him. Let's move on to topic number 4. 49ers. Finally, Brock Purdy gets a massive new extension, and then they also do Fred Warner. Can you tell me a little bit more about the background of those deals and kind of what went into getting those done?
There's a few things about this. It is pretty incredible. I mean, Brock Purdy's deal gets done on Friday. Fred Warner's deal gets done on Monday. Now, they've been talking to Fred Warner for a long time, separate from Brock Purdy, and they've been talking to Brock Purdy for a long time, separate from Fred Warner. We all knew the Purdy deal was coming. It was a long time in the making. He initially opened the negotiations asking for $65 million a year. 65 per year, Ty. Think Brock Purdy's worth $65 million a year?
I mean, I guess you're worth what they're willing to pay you, but I don't know if I'd give him $65 million.
Well, they weren't willing to go to 65. They knew that he's a great quarterback, but Brock Purdy needs the 49ers and they need him. And he's right for them and they're right for him. And it's a great fit. And it's a great fit at $53 million a year, not $65 million a year. That was never realistic, despite the fact that he asked for that at the start of the negotiations. And it's amazing because in his first 3 years, Brock Purdy earned a total and from his football salary of $2.6 million.
Man.
He now will be making $2.9 million per week. So Brock Purdy will make more per week this season than he made in his first 3 NFL seasons combined. That tells you how far along he has come. And the contract, obviously, it's a big one, but it's not Dak Prescott. It's not 60. So that gives the 49ers a little bit of leeway. And they also get Fred Warner done. And I think what's amazing about Fred Warner is I think this is the second time in Fred Warner's 7-year career that he's become the highest paid linebacker in the game. How many players become the highest paid at their position multiple times, especially a non-quarterback? That is a very hard feat to pull off. But the thing about Fred Warner is he's an incredible player. He's an incredible person. He's an incredible leader. Like, people need to remember last year, he fractured his ankle in week 4. Fractured. Played the rest of the season. Didn't miss a snap in the next 7 games. Played like he didn't have the ankle injury, and they were not playing well. They were 6-11, and he still had 131 tackles to give him his 4th straight season of over 130 tackles. First team All-Pro, Pro Bowl, while playing with the injury, while in a losing season, while everything was going south on that team. Fred Warner was an example and continues to be. And one day he came into Sunday Countdown this year. He's going to be on TV and he's going to be outstanding. Like, that guy, when you meet him, wow. Like, I've met a lot of players through the years. There have not been
He's impressive.
Many, if any, who are any more impressive than Fred Warner. That guy is a man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's worth every penny. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And like you said, everyone, like, you understand how important Nick Bosa is to their defense, but, like, he's what makes them go. You know, I mean, without him, they are completely different. And yeah, gutting it out with playing middle linebacker with a broken ankle when you're not going to the playoffs, you know, just the example that sets in the locker room, well deserved for him. And for Purdy, as an Iowa guy, it pains me a little bit because he went to Iowa State, even though he never beat Iowa when he went to Iowa State. But I love that he's finally getting his due because he still gets he doesn't get the credit he deserves from the media. You know, he's always a product of Shanahan's system. He's great. He's unbelievable. I mean, and it just, you know, it's one of those things where he, you know, I don't know if it'd ever be mentioned, but, like, he might deserve the $65 million that he was asking for because he really bailed out Shanahan and Lynch after they draft Trey Lance. You know,
that's also true. How many teams could trade 3 ones for the 3rd overall pick, whiff on that 3rd overall pick, and still have their jobs and thriving with extensions for both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan? That's a credit to Brock Purdy,
without a doubt. So he's worth. I'm glad he's finally getting his due. And again, you know, like, we'll see. I think this will be a nice bounce back year for the 49ers. I think everyone was kind of sleeping on them towards the end. Obviously, they still have some things they got to clean up, and we know the Rams are tough in that division. The Cardinals are getting better. Seahawks, we'll see. But happy for both Brock Purdy and Fred Warner.
Easiest schedule in the league.
That certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah, exactly. All right, Shefty, let's move on to topic number 5. There are some reports coming out that a source close to Aaron Rodgers, and again, take that with a grain of salt, take that however you want, because we know that there aren't a lot of people that actually know what he's going to do, but they're saying that he's getting close to making a decision, and I believe you tweeted you believe that by the end of either this week or next week, he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Where do we stand on that whole situation?
We've used this phrase every time we've talked about Aaron Rodgers in this podcast, and I'm going to say this again. We're taping this Wednesday afternoon, May 21st. But I believe we are entering into a period, roughly a 10-day to 2-week period, where I think the potential exists that we're going to hear something from Aaron Rodgers. Once again, Ty, for the second time in a couple of weeks, we're going to see white smoke emanating from the Vatican, and we're going to have a decision from Aaron Rodgers. And again, we've heard the Steelers talk about the fact that they think he's coming in. They have a mandatory mini camp, June 10th to June 12th. We're getting close to that. If Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, doesn't it make sense that you're going to be there for the mandatory mini camp, to be around your new teammates and new coaches in a new offense? Does it make sense that you would skip that and then not show up until training camp? Does that put you in the best position to succeed when he's got the chip on his shoulder that we all assume that he does? Now, again, there's been no confirmation, but there's a lot of chatter that that decision could be coming at some point here in the next couple of weeks. I want to look at my calendar here. So June 10th to the 12th, that's a Tuesday to a Thursday. And we're about to head into the Memorial Day weekend. So, I mean, to me, yeah, I think next week, the week after, those are prime times for Aaron Rodgers to declare that he does indeed intend to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, if that's what he's going to do. I would think that that's what's going to happen. We all think that that's what's going to happen, but you just never know with him. But yes, I think in the next couple of weeks, we get something from Aaron Rodgers, is my guess.
Yeah, and I think, the devil's advocate response would be, well, he did the mandatory minicamp with the Jets, what was it, a couple years ago, maybe his first year, and he had that trip to Egypt that he took that apparently they knew about when he signed, but then the blowback that he got from the New York media and just kind of the media as a whole, hey, this guy doesn't care. He doesn't want to be there with his teammates when he had been there all the way through. Maybe that is kind of holding him back a little bit. He doesn't want to go through that again. He told us on Pat's show, he was dealing with some personal matters with, people close to him. So who knows? But I think you're right. If you're going to go into this season and this is going to be your last go around, you'd think you want to build that continuity with guys you've never played with before. But again, he marches to the beat of his own drum. So, would it surprise
And there's a lot of
you?
stuff flying around about him. Like he was spotted at the Kentucky Derby. He had a wedding ring on.
Yep.
Is he married? Is he not married?
Exactly. I know I believe he did Joe Rogan's podcast today that came out. So we know he has all these other interests and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I know Steelers fans too. Like they want a little bit of clarity, as we get closer to the mandatory minicamp. But we'll see. It's always been a waiting game. It'll continue to be a waiting game. We'll see if we get any resolution on that in the coming days. All right, Shefty, let's move on to the sixth and final topic of this week's Six Pack. After much debate, the NFL has passed the okay for current NFL players, active players, to play flag football in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles. What do you think about that whole situation and what went into that decision?
Well, I think initially one of the heads of the Olympic Committee, the head of the Olympic Committee, Casey Wasserman, very friendly with Roger Goodell, discussed the idea and said that he wanted to have the greatest athletes in the world all assembled at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, which is what is now going to happen. I think they've gotten basketball. They've gotten football now. I think they're going to be going after baseball players, Major League Baseball players. I think that, I don't know if that's come up there or that's out there. I have no idea. I don't follow that stuff, but I think that's going to be something that's possible for the 28 Olympics. That's going to feature for the very first time NFL players participating in flag football. And it's going to be 10 players, I think, for the United States team, if I'm not mistaken. No more than one per team. And I know people are worried about injury, but we've seen Olympic basketball players play for a long time, and I don't recall anybody getting hurt there. And I think the biggest thing that's going on here is it's just also a continuation of the NFL growing its brand internationally. Football. They want to promote flag football. They want to promote flag football with youth. They want to promote football across the globe. We're seeing more regular season games played internationally this year than we ever have before. I believe it's 7 this year, when the most we've ever seen is, what was it, 3 or 4? I'm reminded Paul George once got hurt for Team USA. Okay, this flag football, I think teams are willing to take that chance when they have the ability to, again, promote the game worldwide as they're growing their market shares in Canada and Europe and Australia and New Zealand and Mexico and everywhere. Like, they're trying to make football even bigger everywhere across the world. And this is another step in that direction to where the league moves in that 18-game regular season. We've said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is where the league's going, I believe. Yep. 18 games. Once they get to 18 games, they siphon off 16 games and sell it as an international package to Netflix or Amazon or wherever they want to do. There's $2 more billion for the NFL owners to divvy up. So this is just a step in that direction. It's a minimal sacrifice. I was at the Pro Bowl when the former Patriots Rookie of the Year running back Robert Edwards, I was outside the hotel when he tore up his knee in a beach volleyball or flag football game on the beach. Flag football on the beach. So could that happen? Of course it could. But you know what? The Pro Bowl goes on every year, and they're allowed to participate in those skills challenges and formerly Pro Bowl games. So it's just something that I think is the natural evolution. Casey Wasserman wanted this. Roger Goodell wanted this. Owners wanted this. Unanimous vote to get the players cleared. And now it's going to happen. And look how big being involved in basketball has been for the NBA and the Olympics, right? It's been great.
Yeah.
Why would football be any different?
I mean, personally, I think basketball has always been, I mean, obviously track and field, that's one thing, but basketball for a lot of Americans, I think, is the centerpiece of the Summer Olympics. That, I mean, because we get to see LeBron playing with Kevin Durant and Kobe and Steph Curry and guys that we would never get to see. And Darius Butler made a good point on Pat's show about if you want to grow the game internationally, flag football is the way to go because the resources it requires to play tackle football. You need the pads, you need the helmets, you need cleats, you need all that kind of stuff. And certain places in the world, that's just never going to be a possibility. It doesn't take much to be able to play flag football. You need flags and I guess cleats, but you don't really even need, you can play in sneakers or tennis shoes. So, and we see what the NFL's doing with trying to get flag football as a sanctioned girls sport in high school. And who knows where that leads in terms of potentially having flag football be a college sport and all that kind of stuff. This is the right move. And as Americans, let's run that gold medal count up. You kidding me? Yeah, let's play flag football. Yeah. Let's let these guys play. The only thing that, and I, with it being on our home soil, I don't think they care about. I just can't see us winning any game by less than 150 points if it comes to it. I mean, I don't even know how many teams would be able to go through qualifying and get into pool play. But, man, that would just, seeing Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Kyler Murray or any of these guys playing quarterback in a flag football game, I would have to imagine that would be pretty appealing to those guys as well.
Kyler Murray would be amazing in flag football, by the way.
Yeah.
Amazing. By the way, I brought up the Emmys a few times, right? I want to end with a couple of thoughts here. On Tuesday night, I got to attend the Emmys. I think it was the first time in over 15 years that I had attended. It was in New York City and was fortunate enough to be nominated for an award in a couple of different categories. One of the categories was Outstanding Edited Special for SportsCenter Special, The Harbaugh Brothers, which aired before they played on Monday night last year. And I had spent some time with Jim and John at the owners' meetings. I believe that was in Florida.
Yeah.
Orlando.
Yep.
And then I went in October to Jack and Jackie's Ann Arbor home and spent a day with them there. And great producers, great people at ESPN led by Sandarfis Duffy, Greg Jewell, a bunch of people put together, Jose Morales, they put together this piece. It ran as a 23-minute special that still lives on ESPN+. It was nominated for an Emmy. NFL Live was nominated for the Best Studio Show, so I was there to support my teammates when I contribute to that show occasionally. And my daughter, Dylan, was a part of the Nickelodeon team that was nominated in the category for an Emmy for the wild card broadcast from Bikini Bottom, which was the Chargers-Texans game. So we were going. Now, I've worked covering the NFL for 35 years. I've been in TV, I believe, for 21. I've never won an Emmy, Ty. Never won.
Really?
Never. So my daughter and I attended the ceremony together on Tuesday night, which is very cool. And there are certain moments in life that you're always going to remember. And as they introduced our category, the Outstanding Edited Special, and began reading the nominees, my daughter grabbed my hand. She was squeezing my hand through each of the nominees. And they called out the Harbaugh brothers, and we won my very first Emmy. Sandarvis Duffy came walking down the aisle. I gave him a big hug. I got to tell you, I don't think people saw it, but it was very emotional walking onto that stage because I really thought, yeah, I'm never going to win one. And he thanked everybody that needed to be thanked. And then I got up there and said something to the effect that I've never been up here before. I don't know that I'll ever be up here again, but I want to say how much respect I have for so many people in this room who do such a great job in our industry. And it was an incredible thrill to win that Emmy. And then later, NFL Live won an Emmy. So I get an Emmy for that. So I had never won an Emmy. And last night, Tuesday night, I got two.
Let's go.
Part of the NFL Live team, which Laura Rutledge, Mina Kimes, Marcus Spears, Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky, they do a great job. So I'm riding their coattails. But this Harbaugh Brothers piece, it was really incredible. The one disappointment of the night, and I would have traded both my Emmys to see Nickelodeon Bikini Bottom win an Emmy. When they were reading the nominees in my daughter's category, once again, we squeezed hands, we held them tight. And when she didn't win, I was very disappointed. But I said to her before, and I meant this really, I said, Dylan, I want you to remember something. I don't know whether Nickelodeon's going to win, whether you're going to get to go up on stage here with the leader of the show, Sean Robbins, but you won already. Like, you're 16 years old. You're part of a production that was nominated for an Emmy. So even if you don't win, you win. You win. Congratulations. And then they didn't win, but it was an incredible experience being with her at this event and getting called up there. Well, once I let the NFL Live people take their spotlight as I should have, but just, it was unbelievable. And the other interesting part of the day, neither here nor there, was the last few years I've taken part in this charity day for this company called BTIG. They bring in a bunch of people to go through, execute trades. They donate money to charities. And I've emceed the event the last couple of years. Well, this year I didn't get to MC it because they got John Fanta. Do you know John Fanta, the broadcaster, to do it?
Yeah. Great play-by-play guy.
Well, yeah. Well, he introduced me at the event, and I understood instantly why I was demoted and not asked back to MC the event this year because John was superior to me. And I got to go to that event. One of the people who was attending, there were a lot of people, luminaries, like I'm walking in, I see Patrick Dempsey, the actor, who my wife at one point I'm sure would have been happy to leave me for. And Alec Baldwin was there, and Brian Cashman, the Yankees general manager, was there. Last year, Josh Hart was there. President Clinton was there. Got to introduce him last year. Always great people. Somehow, me and Hannah Storm began talking to Juliana Margulies, the actress. You know her?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So she's telling me how her son's in 11th grade, wants to work in football, be a scout at front office, loves it, and wants to go to Michigan. And I said, I went to Michigan. You went to Michigan? My father-in-law was a professor at Michigan. I'm like, what was your father-in-law's name? Ken Lieberthal. I'm like, oh my God, your father-in-law was my professor in Chinese studies my sophomore year of college in 1986. Your father-in-law is a legend at Michigan. I didn't know that was your father-in-law. And I brought up the story to a bunch of my college roommates, and one of them reminded me, oh, the same college professor that had his final at the time that Michigan was playing Purdue for the Big Ten championship. And all of my friends went to the game, and I was the only one who skipped it to study for my final in China with Professor Lieberthal, who is Juliana Margulies' father-in-law, who I didn't know. And I found this out yesterday at the charity day for BTIG. Thought it was just kind of a small world, funny kind of story that you never would expect to have happen in New York as we're walking around going through the charity day. It starts with that in the morning, ends with the Emmys at night. But I will say this, I will never forget squeezing my daughter's hands during the announcement of all the awards. That was something that I'll always remember, something that was very special. And it was an incredible night to be a part of that and be in the audience with so many talented people. I mean, it's unbelievable. All these people in media, there's so many people who are so good at what they do, Ty. Really.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's a moment you'll remember for the rest of your life with your daughter. And like you said, how many 16-year-olds are getting nominated for sports Emmys? I would assume that she's the only one. I guess I don't know how many other kids are, in comparison to her age working for the Nickelodeon broadcast, but I would assume she might be the youngest one ever. Who knows?
Yeah, she had to be the youngest one in attendance at the Emmys this year. And you know what tonight is, as we tape this on Wednesday afternoon, I am about to leave my house to go pick up my father at the airport. Him and my mother are flying in from Florida. They were always flying in because my father turns 80 years old on Thursday. So about a month ago, I said to him, I go, Papa, if the Knicks beat the Pistons and if they beat the Celtics and if all these things happen. And if they're playing at home, when you come in for your, we got to go to the Garden. I don't think he's been to Madison Square Garden since Game 7 of the 1970 Championship Series when he was there.
Wow.
When Willis Reed limped out onto the court. And my father has talked for years. He was probably 25 years old at that time. Never forgot it. Loved it. I'm like, you're turning 80. If the Knicks play in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm going to take you. So he goes, okay. Now he calls me on Sunday night. He's like, I don't know. We can make it. Flight's not going to be there in time. I go, move up your flight. We can't do that. Okay, what's the problem? We don't land until 4:30. We got to rent the car. Your mother's got to go somewhere. Stop. Papa, stop. You're turning 80 years old. The Knicks play game 1 of the Pacers that night. We're going. We're going to try to go. So now, literally, I'm going to hang up with you, and I'm going to go pick him up at JFK Airport and fight the traffic. I don't know why he's flying into JFK, not LaGuardia, but whatever. Fight the traffic to go to game 1 of the Knicks and Pacers in what should be a great series in an incredible week, in an incredible family week that I won't forget. So I want to thank you for doing this today, Ty. And
you bet.
Allowing this podcast to get done in reaction to the Tush Push news and everything that has transpired in the National Football League, because it never does seem to quiet down. All right. I want to thank Ty Schmit for his time today and all the great work that he did. I want to thank my great producer, Dan Stanzik. I want to thank Ben Smith for the video clips and the highlights, and you, the listener, for tuning into another Adam Schefter podcast. We'll be back again. When are we going to do this again? We got to figure this out. Another week. We'll probably skip next week and come back the week after when there's more and more NFL news. But until then, I hope everybody has a fantastic Memorial Day weekend, the official start of the summer. It's upon us, and we should know that. We got the Hard Knocks announcement of teams.
Yep.
Memorial Day weekend. Time for everybody to kick into summer gear. Have a great week, everybody. Be well and stay safe.